Hello, everybody. Welcome to In the Doll World. I'm your host, Georgette Taylor. And as always, I'm excited that you're joining me today. We have a wonderful guest for the show. Her name is Debra Pounds. She is a Black doll artist and owner of Paddlefootz Dolls and Thangs.
And
So,
thanks.
and
Yes. Hello.
things.
Hello.
Thank you so much, Deborah, for joining us on In the Doll World.
You're welcome. And I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I'm excited to talk to you about your journey. That's generally how we start the show. I just want to know a little bit about your doll journey, where it started, and how you wound up on In the Doll World.
Okay. I'm not sure how I wound up on In the Doll World, but my actual doll making journey started at 23 years ago. So I've been
Wow.
doing this for 23 years. Before that, I did other crafts like Santas, rabbits, bears, and all that.
Hmm.
And then before that, my mom was a seamstress, my mother was a seamstress. So sewing has been a part of my life, all of my life.
Hmm.
And doll making was just an extension of that, or
Yeah.
turned into an extension of that.
Okay. So did you play with dolls a lot when you were younger and craft
I
your own dolls, or
did.
your
I,
mom
I
bought you more dolls?
my mother, my aunts, my grandmother, they all made sure that I had dolls. And I've always been into hair. So
Hmm.
my dolls got their hair washed and pressed every Sunday, just like I did.
Oh,
So
really?
it didn't
That's
last
pretty
long once
cool.
that heat hit them. But I got in trouble for that.
I was
But
gonna say,
yeah,
did you melt a lot of hair? That's all
I
I.
did.
Yes.
And that heat hit it. Like, well, they gave it to me. I thought that's why. But yeah, so I've always had dolls, and you know, that was my thing growing up was dolls.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
I wanted to get into cosmetology and ended up getting a job that I stayed at for 16 years instead. So the dolls are now basically my clients in cosmetology. And then they don't complain. They,
They
they
don't
don't care
they
how
don't
I do it.
complain.
They don't pay me, but hey,
Why did you decide to create dolls? Even though I know you said you were, your mom sewed and your grandmother sewed and then you
well,
played with dolls, but why was dolls something you wanted to actually create?
the doll journey kind of started when my mother wanting a black Santa Claus for her desk
Mm,
at work. And then from there, I saw different patterns while looking for those patterns. And then my sister got sick, and we started having conversations about dolls that she was buying for my daughters and how
mhm.
hard it was to find them. And I remembered the patterns, and I went back to the patterns. I was like, okay, I could do this, but I can make it cuter. So I started out with the Cupid doll pattern. And,
Okay.
it had the patch of yarn here and
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, nah, we're not doing that. And then embroidery was something that we did growing up. Like most people were out playing in the summertime. We
Right.
were making dish towels and aprons and all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
embroidery. And, my mother and my grandmother were very particular. It had to be perfect, or you pick it loose, start all over again. So embroidery was something nope, not doing it. And then
I'm staying away from that.
not
Too many
doing it. I'll
memories. Too
do
many.
paint.
Yes.
So, the first one started out with the movable eyes, and then
Mm-hmm.
I found some appliques,
Mm-hmm.
and then that company went out of business. So I created what I do now, which is basically my version of an applique. So that's how it started. And then they stopped making one thing, I had to create something else, or they stopped, especially like with the plastic bag holders and tissue covers.
Right.
That was for older ladies that, I never had a doll, and your dolls are beautiful, but what am I going to do with a doll? So
Mm.
I'll give you a lady with a purpose. She's a plastic bag. She's a tissue cover. She's a doll, but she's not that
Mm-hmm.
kind of doll.
Right.
That's how that went.
That's good though. I like that idea. Like you said,
So
give a doll with a purpose for people who don't necessarily collect dolls or can't figure out what
right.
to do with them, even though they do like them,
Or
It
they're,
kind of,
older
yeah.
ladies like I'm too old for a doll, and that well, it's not really a doll because it has a purpose. It looks like a doll, but and that's funny. Growing up, my mother, my grandmother, they made sure that we had black dolls.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they bought a book, they made sure that they colored in so we had black faces. And my grandmother passed away in 2005. And this bag holder had been there as long as I could remember, but I never really paid it any attention until she passed. And I took it
Oh,
down, and it was white. And I'm like, wait, wait. But I had never noticed it. And then again,
really?
she was very particular, and she would
Mm-hmm.
take a grocery bag, the regular, you know, the plastic bag, and she
Right.
would fold it to where it was these perfect little squares. When I cut hers loose to make use it as a pattern, just millions of little square bags fell out, and I'm like, oh my god.
She would like put them in squares.
When she finished
Wow.
folding it up, the little straps would
Yes.
hold it in place. So when you got
Wow.
ready to use it, you just slide the straps off, and pff, there you go, this bag.
Goodness. So,
Yeah,
why did you? What kind of fabrics do you make your dolls out of?
pretty much anything that looks like skin tone. I don't know if you looked at like the past, but I kind of cover that whole rainbow. If
Mm-hmm.
I see something and it looks like it can be a skin tone,
Right.
I got it. And I was thinking about that last night after watching some of your videos, because in all these years of doing this, I can find multiple colors of brown or tan, but there is no Caucasian. It's either too yellow, too pink, or too
Mm-hmm.
pale.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
true. That's
You,
true.
and I'm like,
That's
maybe
true.
maybe they tell us something, because I have like many different. I don't do a lot of knit because
Right.
in the stuffing process, it tends to, it'll never come out the same.
Okay.
But if anything but knit, if it's a skin tone color, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't have a lot. Like I used to have a one I was looking at last night, and the actual fabric had these embroidered horses on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I cut the pieces out between the horses.
Okay. Oh, between the horses.
Yes. That's what I mean by anal. I want this color, so I'm gonna make it work one way or another. But yeah, so that's how
Okay.
I pick my fabrics.
Okay. And now, do you when it comes to the faces? I love the faces that you create. Do you hand paint them? Do you have just a stencil, or how does that
I
work?
have the original, because I've kind of altered them through the years, but the original was an applique company called Eyes to Eyes
Okay.
that I want to say 2006, 2005, 2006, somewhere around there. I used to buy those at Joann's. I used to buy them at
Mm-hmm.
Michael's. And even then, they had one color brown and then like two or three different styles in the baby blue.
Okay.
And as time went on, because that would also limit how many I could make based on how many I could afford, because I think they were like 350 a pack.
Okay.
And as time went on, they completely phased out the brown. And then I figured out a way to take the blue and use a orange Sharpie and a ballpoint pen and color it to make it into
Yeah,
brown.
Jamaica brown to mix the
And
colors. Uh-huh.
eventually it's the sun or whatever would turn kind of greenish,
Right.
but it worked. And when they went out of business, I had to figure out, okay, what am I gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I bought the very last. I found a pair, a set, because it was the eyes, the nose, the mouth on eBay. So I started out, tracing out that,
Okay.
and then iron it on, and then paint it once it's
Okay.
on the face. And
Okay.
then in time, I've kind of it's more like my eyes and
Mm-hmm.
my
Right.
mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And like the original pattern on a lot of them, the hands was like just the mitt and the thumb.
Right.
I do that a lot now, but
Mm-hmm.
mostly on the size, the smaller dolls, because it's hard to do the fingers.
Right.
And then on the stiffer fabric, it's hard to do the fingers, so those are mitts. But I took my hand, copied it, and then shrunk it down
Oh,
to fit,
okay.
because I wanted they had to have fingers.
Oh, wow. That's very cool. That's very cool.
The original pattern didn't have ears,
Mm-hmm.
and my children will tell you I talk to my dolls, because I do. And I tell them, as long as they're not answering back, I'm not crazy. So it's okay.
That's right.
But when you talk to something, it has to have ears for it to get in there.
I talk to my dolls too. You see, they're all back there on the little shelf.
Yes.
I talk to them all the time. They're kind of like my muse, They kind of inspire me.
Yeah.
So,
It gets me in trouble sometimes, like when I'm doing a show and I'm unpacking them and I'm talking, and the person next to me is like,
I used to
yeah,
talking to her dolls.
yeah, I am.
That's funny. So
Yeah.
where do you get the ideas from the characters that you create for the dolls? So do they just
It,
show up,
it,
or you see
it,
somebody and you're like, I think I want to make something like that?
I mean, on a custom, I might try it like that, but for the most part, they all start from the same pattern, and it I know what I'm starting with, but I don't know
Hmm.
what it's gonna be until it's done.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I like on the fabric, I never know how, because I usually do whatever the design. I might have a basic pattern like a sundress or whatever,
Right.
but I don't know how long it's gonna be, how wide it's gonna be, because I base it on whatever the design and the fabric is. And
Mm.
then when you start with the hair, I know, okay, I buy this pack of hair, but it tells me what it wants to be or
Okay.
how. So I never really know until it's done,
Hmm.
unless it's a next edition of something
Okay.
or a custom. And then even the next editions, they'll never be exact. Even if I try, I can't do it
Right.
exactly the same.
Hmm.
So I'll have the same materials, I'll have the same hair, but it's no guarantee that it's going, because it tells you what it wants you to do. It like, nah, I don't, that don't look right. So redo it and redo it. Okay, there it is. So that, I never know. I don't
Hmm.
know.
Right. You don't know. Right. You don't say, okay,
No.
well, I'm going to make this doll,
And
like,
even if I
yeah.
did do that, it
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna end
End
that way.
up that way. Okay. I understand. You do commissions, right?
I do.
Now, how many commissions do you do a month?
And see, I'm not at that level. I don't
Okay. All
I,
right.
I wish I was, and I'm
No.
trying to get there, but more I don't do a lot of commissions,
Okay.
but generally what's on my website, and when I was on Amazon Handmade, what's on there is something that's already been made and you're ordering the next edition.
Hmm.
And in that, I think with Amazon, I was doing probably once a month.
Okay.
And then lately,
Hmm.
I'm not doing a lot of shows.
Hmm.
And generally, what I have in stock is what's being purchased, but they'll be redone.
Okay. All right. Also, what I wanted to know too is that because you do doll shows, and I want to talk a little bit about the doll show that you created as well, the International Shades of Beautiful,
International Shades of Beautiful.
Beautiful You, doll show. I want to talk a little bit about that, but before that, I want to just find out from you, how did COVID really affect sales and your business in general, when if you were doing a lot of doll shows and you had to stop, or did COVID not affect it at all?
Well, for me,
Mhm.
and doll making is like my secondary thing.
Okay.
So when COVID hit, I also had my mother-in-law live with me who had dementia. So she was my main source of income. She ended up passing from COVID.
I'm so
So that
sorry to
meant
hear that.
I had to, okay, now I need a main source of income. So I
Right.
kind of, because the shows that I normally did, including my own, I think we did the last one in February of 2020. And
Hmm.
then March was when they shut
Right.
everything down.
Right. Hmm.
So everything that I did after that was basically shut down. And I went full time driving
Mm.
for Uber. So I was
Okay.
doing 12, 14. So I basically shut down Paddlefoot. And later people were like, well, you shouldn't have did that, blah, blah, blah. Well, I had bills to pay.
Right.
So
I mean, right, exactly.
I needed a roof, blah, blah, blah. And
Right.
then I ended up losing that because I had an accident.
Hmm.
And so now I don't have a job and I'm not doing this because,
Right.
I'm not selling, I'm not
Hmm.
buying. So I've used up whatever. Actually, I'm finally to the point that I say I've used up most of what I had as far as
Hmm.
stock for,
Hmm.
and I still have clothing
Right.
materials,
Right.
but like the skin tones and
Hmm.
I'm all out of I'm completely out of chocolates and so it's time to start getting back to that. But at the
Hmm.
same time, I haven't built back up to what I was
To
before.
you before COVID, right?
And now I live in a different area. I
Hmm.
don't have a vehicle. So
Okay.
everything that I'm doing, I'm trying to do online.
Hmm.
And with the different algorithms that the different systems have,
Hmm.
what used to go to everybody or a lot of people,
Right.
unless you're actually paying for those,
Yes.
so you're stuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, I
Yes.
mean, I'm on the build up, build
You're on the
back,
build up
build
and the
back
build
better,
back.
whatever.
Okay.
That was why I said build back better. Well, build back bigger and better.
Right.
And
Right. Right.
and that's my thing. And then I've also I've been doing a lot of free classes and free courses.
Yes.
But one of the things that somebody told me this years ago, and that is that you will make more money teaching what you do than doing what you do. So that's kind of
That's
where I'm
true.
at right now in the branching out into the teaching.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Well, that's great.
so I want to do it virtual, what they call hybrid, so live and virtual.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's kind of where I'm at right now. And, I've never, up until 2021, so almost 2 years now,
Hmm.
I've never taken a class from anybody else. Everything that I do is kind of self-taught.
Okay.
And I tell people all the time, oh, I can't make a doll. If you just sew a straight stitch, you can make a doll. That's my just that simple, because that's all you're doing. It's
Right.
just some stitches are a little curvier than other, but
Right.
still a straight stitch.
Hmm.
And attention to detail is important.
Right.
But other than that, anybody can make a doll. But
I still doubt myself, but okay.
if you can sew a straight stitch, you
but I
can make a
but I
doll.
can't really sew a straight stitch. Sister Look, so let
There's
me tell you, it's hilarious. My husband bought me a sewing machine when I was pregnant with my youngest son. No, he's 30 now. So, and I was like, oh, I was so excited. I'm like gonna make all of these things. You know what I made? A runner for the top of the dresser. That's how bad it was. That's all I ever made.
So you don't have patience, is what it is. Then that's it. Because
That's what it is.
that's it. Trust me, that's it. And that's
Okay.
that's that's one thing. And I was talking to this other doll maker, and she was talking. She did a class, and because I was, I took this class. I was going to tell you about. I'll come back to that. And then Jan just did a class, and I helped her with setting up her Zoom and all this other
Mm,
stuff.
nice.
And then I asked her how it went, and she was like, "Whoa," and I was just like, "Never again. I hate doing it online." Da, da, da. And I couldn't figure out why, but basically it was because we do this as a living,
Mm-hmm.
it just comes to us.
Right.
But
Yes.
somebody who's never done it, or who sews but they don't know the terminology, or
Right.
they don't know, you
Mm-hmm.
know, that's different, and you can't expect them to go at your pace.
Right.
And she was like, she told them to baste something, and the lady was like, "What's basting?" Well, okay, you can get mad because you don't know what basting is, but like when I made my original pattern back in 2017, I think it was, I actually had like an appendix at the back that had
Right. The
all of those
terminologies and what it
definitions and
was. Right.
terminologies,
Okay.
and
That makes
kind of
sense. Yeah.
did a little picture of what it should look
Mm-hmm.
like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing all that now. I'll just tell you about it, or we'll have a little class that I show you. This is what this means, or
Right.
it's
Right.
easier.
Yeah.
But back to me doing this class, her Gloria Grandi, the great Gloria Grandi.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I still don't know how long we've been friends, or how we became friends, but I want to say I started following her on Facebook in 2015, and her dolls were simple but elegant, and
Yes.
it was just gorgeous. And then this group offered a class that she was taking, and or she was offering, and I was like, okay, I am a doll maker, so I don't need the kit, but I would like
Mm-hmm.
to watch and see how she does the class. They sent the kit anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and that was awesome because I got to see how she presents, and she gave the doll already made.
Mm-hmm.
She gave a bag of stuffing that she had actually weighed out so that each person's kit had the same amount of
Mm-hmm.
ounces of stuffing,
Right.
the stick to stuff them, some pins to pin it together when you stitched up the side, the
Oh,
thread
nice.
and the
Yeah.
needle to stitch it
Wow.
up, and the pattern to make another doll, plus pattern for a skirt, pattern for a dress, pattern for this, pattern for the head wrap.
Wow. They got a
I
lot
mean,
of stuff.
all of that. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, this is how I want to do it, which is what I'm in the process of doing now.
Okay.
But it watching her class and then dealing with Jan in her class, I see what I want to do and how I want to do, and
Right.
I'm
Right.
combining them together.
Mm-hmm.
Because with hers, it was 2 sessions. It was like 2 hours each session, and she basically just gave you everything you needed.
Mm-hmm.
Basically said, Only thing I have to tell you is if there's still some stuffing in that Ziploc bag, get in, stuff
You
it,
didn't
tighten
stuff it
up.
enough.
So that's where I want to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of where I'm headed.
Well, you had it. Okay. With your
And
classes.
I
Okay.
actually, this is the doll that I made in her class.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And everything is no sew. So you don't need a sewing machine. You
Okay.
just need a little invention. And I didn't want to use her exact pattern. So I've created my own pattern,
Okay.
which now is all one piece because
Mm-hmm.
my dolls itself is like two arms, two legs. The
Right.
head has three pieces, the face, that's too much to try to teach in a
Mm-hmm.
timely manner. So we're going this route now.
Nice. That's really nice. So,
Yeah.
have you decided when you're going to start your classes?
I'm thinking about and maybe going virtual with the first class during Black History
Black
Month.
History Month. Mm-hmm.
And then the international show is in March.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that would also be a way to tie it into Women's History Month,
Right.
Black
Black
History Month.
History Month. Mm-hmm.
Boom.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's
You have
coming.
them covered. So, speaking of tying it into your show, let's talk about your show. When did you start doing the International Shades of Beauty for You? I do know it was a different name before.
Yes, it was
And
still Shades of Beautiful You.
mhm.
But I added the international for this one because I wanted to branch it out and I wanted it to be virtual and in person, what they call
Okay.
hybrid.
Okay.
Um, it started out Shades of Beautiful You. I think I mentioned Yolanda Jordan. Yolanda and I are part of a group of Black doll makers, a group
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook. Most of those ladies are crochet doll makers, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of the few that they allowed to come in that don't do crochet. And I pitched it to them. They helped me come up with the name. And in our first show, which was in 2019, I think I had like 22 vendors altogether.
Okay.
Of those 22, at least 17 of
Mm-hmm.
them were crochet ladies. So I had Yolanda didn't come, but I had Aniqua, LaShawn, all these people
Mm-hmm.
you've probably seen, especially on
Right.
Instagram.
Instagram. Mm-hmm.
They're everywhere. The Christian Crochet Lady,
Mm-hmm.
Chocolate Cherry Bomb, Aniqua's My Kind of Thing. I forget what Gwen's company is, and Carol's daughter. It
Mm-hmm.
was awesome, and that was the best show so far.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And each year since then, I've done two since then,
Mm-hmm.
and then COVID shut us down
Mm-hmm.
completely. But I want to take it to a different level. And then again, weather.
Yes.
and
Yes.
and the first that year and the next 2 years, every time I did it, it could be storming the day before, storming after. But that weekend we had blue skies and
Right.
sunshine.
Right.
And
Right.
in
And of course, it
2020,
depends on where people are coming from and traveling to.
and
You
I
know,
had
that is a problem too.
Ohio, New
Mm-hmm.
York. They were coming
Mm-hmm.
from a bunch of different places. So you add the weather in, it's like, I don't want to do that. And then I think the 2020 show was the first time that it actually rained the day of, and
Mm-hmm.
then COVID hit. So it's like, oh, this is a sign. But this time I moved it out of February because I always did it or aimed to do it the last weekend in February because it was Black History Month.
Right.
So this time I've moved it to the end of March.
Mm-hmm.
So it's March 24th, 25th, 26th.
Right.
That's how it started.
Okay.
And I back when I first I'm from California originally.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been here in Georgia since 2014. And one of the first couple of things that people I connected with were people that were mentoring me.
Mm-hmm.
And again, my finances weren't the best. And I was like, there's two Black doll shows, one in Oakland
Mm.
and one in Detroit. And I can't go back to Oakland. Detroit, I did finally do Detroit in
Detroit.
2019 for the
Mm-hmm.
first time.
Nice.
But one of them, Alicia Snow, was like, since you can't go to them,
Mm-hmm.
create your own
Right.
and go from there. So that's how the initial
That's how it started.
idea of
Okay.
doing the show came about.
Okay.
There used to be another one in New York. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that I met that lady in Detroit. So
Mm.
she's not doing it anymore, but she's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be starting it. But basically, there are only two Black doll shows
Wow.
in the nation.
which is so
And
interesting, you know,
yes,
because we because we know how much having black dolls matter, and how much having black dolls, represent, other children, and children in general. Yet
yes.
we only have two black
And
doll
then the
shows.
funny part is they're both in November. So that was another reason. Move mine to February or
Mm-hmm.
earlier in
Mm-hmm.
the year. And it's not over. Okay. And
Right.
then what I would love, I met somebody who was like, well, why don't you do it in another state? Well, if I'm gonna be doing it in other states, then somebody in another state has to be helping me do that. I
Right.
don't
Exactly.
mind putting it together, but
Mm-hmm.
again, that's where
Mm-hmm.
the team comes in. I can do the basics. I can make the
Mm-hmm.
flyers. I can contact the people, but I need somebody else who's marketing,
Right.
who's that part, because that's not
Right.
me.
And
Okay,
the
I'll go
thing
back.
is, with something like that, you have to have really great marketing, because at the end of the day, if you are looking to showcase dolls, you're bringing in vendors, you're bringing in people who have products who want to sell, and you
Mhm.
have to have, the people
People to
to,
buy.
right, to
Yes,
buy. You cannot have a expo or a conference with just the people who are presenting
that's
and the
right.
people who are
You
vending.
need somebody spending that money to
Right, and
come
you have
and
to,
make them want to come back. And
exactly.
that
Mhm.
I get it, but at the same time, I'm not giving up. No.
No,
It's
don't give up.
come.
Definitely do not give up. I
It's
mean,
gonna come.
because it's really important. I mean, and the fact that you mentioned that your mom and your grandmother, they would make sure that you had black dolls when you were growing up,
Hmm.
and even if the coloring books didn't reflect that, they made sure it reflected it by the time it got to you.
It That's
And so,
another thing. Like
but
now they have all these different gel pens and
right,
Sharpies. They
right.
had the little felt tip pens when I was a little girl. So you could tell everywhere they colored because when you put the pen up, it left a little mount, little ink spot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But I think that that's really important that they did that for you.
Yeah.
you know
That was
um and it just shows up in the work that you do, and how important it is for you to still represent that,
that
in
part.
your
And then it keeps me
community.
sane too. So
It keeps her sane.
and that's something another thing I want to do as far as the teaching is because when I was a little kid, go outside and play. You
Right.
didn't sit in
that's
front of a
what that's what I
TV
did. Hmm.
or glued to a cell phone
Right.
playing. You didn't do that.
Nope.
And then, like I said, my summers, we were doing embroidery. Or,
Hmm.
my grandmother did teach us basic crochet, but that wasn't something I wanted to do. But they don't do that anymore. And
Yeah.
I think if I've taught classes because I was working somewhere and we would make it a point to do like when school was out in spring break or winter break, we would try to do classes for them. So the guy
Hmm.
I worked with was a shoemaker. So he did a
Mm.
shoemaking class.
Oh,
Then I
nice.
brought in
Hmm.
somebody that did jewelry. And then I did the doll making class.
Hmm.
And it was nice. We were dealing with, I think 6 years old was the youngest that we had in there.
Okay.
But if you get them then before they get to the point where they don't want to sit and be still and
Hmm.
whatever. But if you get them then you spark something.
Hmm.
And like one of the little girls, while she was waiting for her mother to pick her up, she had little pieces of paper and we used like brown paper bags.
Right.
But the extra pieces from the shoes that she made a little book
Mm.
that about her journey, which she
Oh.
did. It was so cute. So that's another reason I want to teach. And
Hmm.
then,
Yes.
you get into the older people and they want something to do. And that's something they can do with their hands too.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
especially with the no sew ones,
Yes, the no
then
sew ones are
you don't
great.
need a
I
sewing
could do
machine.
that.
Or even if you do, just a basic straight stitch with a needle and thread, you can do
Hmm.
that. But it's simple. Like, and I'll show you this guy. This is a guy. This
Okay.
is not him because he has pants, and I didn't want the side of his dress. I
Right.
did.
Open.
This is
Hmm.
by hand.
Hmm.
This is by
Yep.
these size thing. But other than that, it's no sew.
Like a little
And it's a little
dashiki. That's
hat.
what it looks like.
Yeah, this is the guy. So
Hmm.
these little squares. There we go. All right. So
Yay.
it's got dashiki pants and the little kofi hat. So
Right.
one of the patterns that's included
Okay.
in the kit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically where I want to go. I want to. Yes, I don't want to quit making dolls myself, but
No, please don't,
I,
because they're so beautiful.
but I do want to, like they said, you make more teaching what
Yes.
you do. And
Right.
then there's another thing I was trying to do last year where there's a group, well, there's two. There's one that I know of, which the lady is trying to get dolls into Ghana and other
Mm-hmm.
places in Africa because
Right.
they don't have black dolls.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
now that China has kind of taken over, I know somebody that was also Cameroon. When she was
Mm.
younger, it was white
Okay.
dolls. When she
Okay.
went back to bury her mother, it was
Wow.
Chinese dolls, but no black dolls. So
Really?
there are groups now that are they specifically make dolls, black dolls,
Mm-hmm. Right.
to donate to Africa. So that's something else. And once you learn this, if you want to continue this, you'll have all the patterns and you can make them
Mm.
to donate, whatever. There's a group on Instagram out of Australia. And
Okay.
what caught my eye with them is they have different people around the nation that make dolls. There's a group that donates the fabric and then they make the dolls. But they're donating like 2,500. They had a van that was
Mm.
stuffed to the gills of dolls that they were shipping back to Africa,
Really?
different different places in the continent of Africa. And I was like, see, that's what I want to do.
Right.
So
Right.
I want us to be able to do that same thing.
Yeah.
And nobody else starts it, then let it be me.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
if it catches on, then fine. If it doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
but that's something. It could be an after school program.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a weekend program. You can take the pattern and make them as you want to. But
Right. Right.
it's the thought,
Yeah.
and I believe once you get that doll making bug, I think you'll be stuck. I think you'll be like, yes, I love this. I can do this.
I'm sure once you figure out how to do it, then it's like your mind is just open to what you can
Yeah,
make, you
because you're
know?
like,
So
okay, I took this piece of fabric and
fabric,
this piece of
right,
fabric, and
right.
look what
Yeah,
I did.
exactly. You look at fabric a whole different way, you know. It's so
Definitely.
funny. I had another lady on Natasha Smith the last show that I did, and uh and I was asking her how did she, decide to do her dolls. So she was an art doll creator as well. And she said, the she basically just goes to the fabric place and whatever fabric she sees, that it kind of helps her, it kind of speaks to her. And then that's when she creates something, she'll see something
Wow.
nostalgic or something like that. And it's like, okay, I really need to create something from there. So I think once you learn how to do a doll or create a doll and put it together, I
You
think the
look at
fabric will
fabric
start to speak to
differently.
you a lot
And see,
differently.
that's like I don't have, well, now I do because I pretty much used up what I had. But when I came to Georgia, I had 2 foot lockers full of fabric. Well, now it's maybe half of
Hmm.
one that's
Right.
left. But when I started, I bought my fabric while I traveled. If I saw something I like,
Hmm.
eBay back in the day used to
Right.
have awesome. And I don't like in most things, I don't want to go somewhere and see what I
Right.
have
What you have.
somewhere else.
Right. Right.
So I like unique. I like
Hmm.
you one of a kind. I like old.
Hmm.
So a lot of what I have is old
Hmm.
and you don't find it in. And if you do
In some
find it,
place.
where I spent like I think I could get 6 yards back in the day for like $24.
Hmm.
Now it's 36 and up. And it's
Yes.
not it's a
The
copy.
quality. The
It's
quality
not
is not that good. Yeah.
right. And
Hmm.
it's if I do now, sometimes I get lucky and I find stuff that I had 10 years ago and it's the actual piece.
Hmm.
But that's probably from somebody like the what I call the seasoned doll makers who
Right.
bought it back in the day and either they don't sew anymore or they passed away and
Hmm.
their family decides they don't want it, so they're gonna get rid of it.
Right. Right.
But everything else is a copy.
Hmm.
And some copies are good copies, some copies are not.
Hmm.
But I don't want to go because I can go to any store and you know how they have stacks by
Stacks,
the
right.
yard. I don't want that.
Right. You want something unique. Yeah.
And that was what I loved about the first show that I did with most of the doll makers. And all these ladies are awesome crochet doll makers. And even though they all make crochet dolls, there is no competition.
Right.
And each one, especially if you follow them, you can look at one and know
And know
Yolanda
who it
made
is.
this,
Right. Right.
Lushonda made this,
Yes.
or Kia made. I mean, because in everything, even though it's all the same principle, it's the person.
Yep.
That's what comes out in.
And that's what I was going to ask you. I remember one time I was interviewing Noel Cruz. He's a amazing repaint artist. He's phenomenal. And I asked him this question, like, what, because there's tons of repaint artists, let's be real, right? But what makes him unique? What makes it a Noel Cruz doll? What makes Paddlefoot dolls a
It's what
Paddlefoot doll?
you put
Right.
into it. It's what comes out of you when you pour into, just like when you make a kid. It's these are my children.
I love
And
it.
I have children. I have children and grandchildren. And then I also tell the story, these are my children. They've replaced my children, except I don't have
Right.
to feed them.
Right.
They don't
Right.
fight.
Right.
They don't
Exactly.
complain about the
Yes.
clothes.
They're quiet.
Thank you. They don't argue. I don't have to break up any fights. I don't have to fuss about clean your room.
That's funny. So
That part.
you are now moving into creating your classes, which is great, and you
Mhm.
are moving into I guess reigniting the doll show, which I think is
Yes.
fabulous. I think that's something that, again, we know it's very needed, since it's only two really you know major black doll shows out here.
Right.
So yours is definitely needed, and I really wish you success on that, because I think it's something that is
Excuse me. Needed and necessary. I have
needed
one.
and necessary. Thank you. That's a good one. I like that. Needed. Yeah, the doll show is definitely needed and necessary. So I wish you really much success on that. And I'm gonna put out there some good energy, that you find the people that you need to help to support you in doing
Okay.
that. You know.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. I do. I love your dolls. I love the faces. I love the way you paint them. I love their hair. They're just so phenomenal, and they definitely have a uniqueness about them that is
They
that is
have their
really
own little
beautiful.
personality.
They really do. They really do. And the other ones that you have, it's not the keychains. It's the purse holders, right?
These little ladies.
Yes, those are so
So I
adorable.
have in be a computer. So I do these, and now
Now, what are those
also
called exactly?
these. I call them purse charms,
Purse charms.
so they
Okay.
can hang on your purse. There we go. And they
Purse
they
charms.
technically started out as keychains, but
Mm.
with your keys constantly hitting on it.
Hmm.
And then I was looking at one of the designers. I'm not sure who, but they had what they call purse charms. And it would be like just a little piece of leather with their name.
Name
And they
on it.
wanted $70. No.
Right.
I do purse charms, I do brooches, and then I just started doing magnets. So these ladies
Oh, so
are
pretty.
magnets.
So
So
pretty. I love her face. That is so cool.
doesn't she look like Ava DuVernay?
Yes, she does. Especially with that side swoop thing on
Yes.
her hair.
Matter of
Yeah.
fact, I did it and then I was like, who she look like? And then I went and found the picture. And in the picture, that's how her hair was. I was like,
Yeah. I just love the face though. I love the markings on the face, the way you have them.
that's Wakanda forever. And then, of course, I love gray hair.
Yeah.
I love gray
Yes.
hair.
Me too. Me too. I
Yeah,
have to learn to love that.
I have no choice because it's taking over. But
Very cool. I love
yeah.
those
So
dolls. Very nice.
I
Very,
thank
very
you.
good. I love them. I love 'em. So where are you what is your besides the doll show and the classes, are those the only other ventures that you have coming?
Those are the only other ventures I
Okay.
have coming. And
Hmm.
like I said, I want to make it national.
Okay.
So I'm supposed to be going to Cali.
Hmm.
I haven't been home since 2019.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
I
All
have
right.
2 children and 5 grandchildren. No, yeah, five that I haven't seen in person.
Hmm.
So I need to go. But in going these places, I want to make sure I'm doing a class there. Or I'm
Hmm.
doing some, whether it's a private class, because I also do that. I do classes, I do parties. I've done birthday parties,
Okay.
doll making birthday parties. I've
Really?
done,
So
yes,
you
and it
do
was
doll
awesome.
making birthday parties. You do.
So each kid gets to pick out the skin tone that they want. I make the doll. Now that I'm making them, and I didn't show you the new pattern. So this is my version of Gloria Grandi's pattern. So
Hmm.
it's 16 inches and it'll stand. You can put shoes on it, it'll stand by itself. Otherwise, it stands against a wall, like leaning
Okay.
against something.
Hmm.
But I make the doll, I bring the fabrics with a pattern for them to know so cut out. They make it themselves. And it's just it's awesome. So
That's
that was the
beautiful.
birthday party. And actually I've done two birthday parties. And then I
Mhm.
did an event with some deltas
Okay.
where they did the teeth purse charms. Well, they
Yes,
had
first.
purse charms,
Yes.
magnets,
Hmm.
brooch. So it can be a bonding
Yeah.
experience on
Yes.
top of a class. So that's where I'm going with this.
That's beautiful. I like that. I really like that idea with the
Thank
birthday
you.
parties and the classes and for the purse charms, from women's groups. I think that'd be a beautiful thing to
And
do.
churches. That's
And
what I'm trying.
churches. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay, so you got some big things happening. Really cool.
So other than that, you can find me online, but
Okay. Where can
Instagram.
it okay, Instagram.
So
Hmm.
I'm on Instagram, Paddlefootz with a Z dolls is Instagram, Paddlefootz Dolls and Things is Facebook. The doll show has its own Facebook page, so International Shades of Beautiful You. And my actual website is Paddlefootz Dolls
Okay.
.com or shop paddlefootzdolls.com.
Mhm.
That's
Okay.
that's me right now.
Thank you. Thank you so
And
much,
thank you
Deborah.
so. And that
Thank
was a
you.
question. I saw when you were talking to Yolanda, and she was trying. Well, I don't know how they found me to do, but so how did you find me?
I found you on Instagram. I believe that you are a friend of mine on Instagram. You think you started
Ah,
following me. And I mean, I'm always looking at Instagram, looking for different people, to interview. And I'd seen your stuff. I remember last year, I think when you were putting out the information for your doll show.
okay,
I
yeah.
remember that, and I think I remember contacting somebody who was, I think, helping you market or either sharing the information, and that's how
Okay.
that's how I found you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I have
Well,
enjoyed myself.
well, thank you so much for being on in the doll world, Deborah. I really appreciate it. I love your work, and I'm excited to get to see the classes and the doll show that you have coming, and all the things that you do towards making black dolls matter in our community, and not just here but also internationally. So thank you so much for your
You are welcome,
contribution to that. You know,
and thank you for having me.
you're so welcome. Okay,
All right.
okay, bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.